All right. We'll give it just a couple seconds here as we get to 2:01 and we'll get rolling. If you have questions today, you can certainly put them into the chat and the Q&A or the Q&A box, either one. I'll usually try to check through both of those as we move along there. So we got some note takers, got some all kinds of sounds good. Well, let's do it. Let's jump in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. If you've been a part of a WSI webinar before, welcome back. I know we've done some AI webinars throughout the course of the year, teaching you how to use different AI tools, prompt engineering, and so on and so forth. So a lot of you have been here for those. Welcome back. If this is your first WSI webinar, welcome. We're really glad to have you in. We try to do these every few months in order to really just kind of keep skills fresh, kind of give you an idea of the things that are happening out there in this ever-changing landscape world, so you can kind of keep the skills to stay ahead of the people who evaluate us, I suppose, and try to make sure that, we have the skills necessary. So today it is AI dashboard magic. And when it comes to skills in the 21st century, one of the best skills that you can possibly have is being able to take a spreadsheet of data that makes a lot of people's eyes roll into the back of their head and really tell a story with that data. In fact, if you look at something like the New York Times, they have an entire team of people who code and turn data into interactive things as you scroll, and people love to be able to tell that story, to be able to see how the data translates into a real world picture. And so being able to do this is a really coveted skill, more than just designing charts and graphs, which are very powerful tools as well, and things like Excel and Google. But today we're going to take it just a little bit further than that. And we're going to be doing what's called vibe coding. And maybe this is something you've heard about through the scope of AI. This is really a 2025 skill that's been kind of the buzzword, vibe coding. And essentially that means is we as non-computer programmers are just using real language with an AI like ChatGPT or Google Gemini with an LLM to get the code that we need or create the app or the website or the tool that we need simply by using natural language and a trial and error process, which is a big part of it as well. But today we're going to dip our toe into the vibe coding world. And really the big idea today is to try to get you to engage in the vibe coding world, because if you can use ChatGPT pretty well, and you're good at prompt engineering, and you're good at Google, Gemini and Notebook, and creating images or creating, whatever it is that you make out of AI, vibe coding is really that next step forward, where your imagination is the only thing that limits you, and a little bit of your patience and being able to test the things that you build. So today, here in this webinar, we're going to build various dashboards to look at our payroll across both departments and individuals, using a variety of different tools that build dashboards. And there's more than just one program that does that, and we'll try to take you into a look at that today. So again, welcome. If you haven't been part of our webinars before or haven't seen me before, my name is Mark Cady. I work here at WSI's corporate support division, handling digital marketing, content creation, and AI integration, helping our teams kind of get up to speed on AI as well. So I have the pleasure of being here to help all of us out today as well. So again, welcome to the webinar. Today, we're going to look at first a non-AI program when it comes to building dashboards, something that works with a wide variety of different programs, as well as the information you have, whether it comes from Excel or CSV, Google Looker Studio. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, we'll give you an overview of that today and how to lay out a dashboard. We'll also dip into Google Sheets. This is, the program we primarily work with here at WSI. Some people work in Excel, some people work in Google Sheets. We'll show you Google Sheets and spend some time in there showing you how to deploy app scripts. And this is going to use a little bit of AI to write our code today. And we're just going to show you where you copy and paste that code to try to get your dashboard looking cool. We'll show you the full AI gamut with Google's AI Studio, where you can just use the natural language that we use every single day with each other and an LLM to just try to build what we want to try to build by the time it's all done. And finally, we'll give you an overview of Microsoft 365 with Copilot. If you use Excel a lot, Maybe you have a Copilot subscription, maybe you don't, but we'll show you the power of having a Copilot subscription with your Microsoft account if you work in Excel every single day. So like I said, this is really a big overview of products that you can use to help build a dashboard. We won't build super detailed dashboards. We're just really going to try to keep it simple for you. We don't want to crawl too much into the technical weeds, but we want to show you these programs so that if you work in spreadsheets every day, you're able to say, okay, how can I take this to the next level to help those maybe above me or people around me who aren't quite into spreadsheets. So the biggest thing before you get started with any dashboard is making sure that your data is really cleaned up. And this is an important thing. You don't want partial records, and you don't want missing information here or there, because it's hard for some of these tools to build the dashboard if they don't know what's inside the cell. So before you begin, it's really important to properly organize your spreadsheet and have a plan for what you want to display. And maybe it's a drawing, maybe it's just a sketch on a napkin, maybe you can wireframe it out on your computer, maybe you can just explain it, but you kind of need a way to at least know where you're driving the bus. So when it comes to your data, one of the things that I recommend is just some simple cleanup, right? We've come into spreadsheets before where people are trying to track information through columns for people, and it's kind of things get scattered. The important thing is to make sure that your rows that are going left and right, that is the one thing, each entry for one thing, and your columns represent an idea about that one thing. So if you can get that, where your rows is one thing and your column is one idea, that's going to clean up your data and help it to tell a story right off the bat. Also, if you're creating charts or big totals or big, data dumps for people to understand, try to use that on separate tabs, not inside the raw data. And also use consistent labels, things like drop-down menus that you can put in with Google Sheets and Excel. We'll show you some of that later. Drop-downs rule, and they keep your data, your dashboards running very smoothly. Also making sure that you're formatting numbers and keeping those dates and things like that clean, and letting the system know whether it's currency, whether it's a date, whether it needs a fraction, whether it's just a straight number, and dealing with missing or duplicate data. These are some of the simple cleanup rules. If you've got some of that missing stuff or extra duplicates, make sure you clean that up as well before you start to build your dashboard. So just some simple housekeeping right there before you get started. Today we are going to work on a sheet that's let's see, let me find it here on the drive. We've got a payroll sheet, and it's going to be called Payroll 2024-25. And if you can see this sheet right here, this is a payroll record that we've generated. This is, just fictional information, but we have our employee number here. We have the week of pay beginning in January of 2024 and going every single week all the way for that person for employee number one, all the way through September 30th, their department, what location they work in, how many hours they're working a week, and how many overtime hours, some gross pay. These numbers aren't really like super real, but we just put a number in there as we needed to, and hire dates as well. So all of that's in here. We do have some missing data in the salary field right here, and so I feel like we can just be cool and even just get rid of that. So now we feel like our data is really buttoned up, because I just said make sure you don't have incomplete data. So we don't need to give it a field if it doesn't need to right now. That being said, our data here is a full, much to my supervisor's chagrin, 15,000 lines of information here of payroll data over the last year or so, last couple of years at least. So that's all in here. And what we're going to do is just try to find different ways to display this information today, or ask it questions or interact with it. And right off the gate, we have this saved as an Excel spreadsheet, which we'll dip into later. But right now, we're looking at this as a regular Google Sheet. So if you're in Google Sheets, don't forget that one of the things you can always do is use Gemini here inside of a Google program, especially if you have a Google Pro account, or you're using it at work. But you can always ask Gemini to do things for you, and it's really good at summarizing data, being able to build charts and graphs and so much more. You could say, what was the total hours of overtime for maintenance, sorry about my spelling today, in Kalamazoo, actually let's change it to Detroit, for 2025. And we've got 15,000 lines of information to sort through, but we could just ask Gemini in Google Sheets questions about our data and have it analyze it, go through and do those things and create everything. So it looks like for Detroit, 384 hours, right? And if we wanted this to be a chart or a graph, we could do that as well. We could just insert that straight into our report here, but we're not going to work with that now. But I just want to make that point that if you're working in Google Sheets, don't forget to just use Gemini as you need to up here in this top right corner. But to begin today, before we start diving into our information, we're going to start with Google's Looker Studio. And this is a free cloud-based data visualization tool. This basically is a way to take your spreadsheets and lay them out on a page with drag and drop formatting that's going to help tell the story a little bit better. And you can do it from variable data sources. You can blend data sources, different spreadsheets, and it also connects straight to platforms like Google Analytics or Google Ads, other databases as well. So you can actually just plug it in and it'll be able to pull that data into Looker Studio. It has a free version, but if you want to connect to other services, there are going to be some costs incurred via APIs, which are little keys that help programs talk to each other. So that being said, we've got our big spreadsheet here. Let's jump over to Google Looker Studio, and you can find that by going to lookerstudio.google.com. And when you come in, you'll start here at the beginning of Looker Studio, and we can create a blank report. We've got some templates, various different ways that we can present our information. But what I want to do is I want to create. And before I create, I need to make sure I have the actual data source. And so as you can see here, there are all the different programs that you can plug into, put in your credentials and bang into Google Sheets, bang into uploads of CSVs, Microsoft Excel. It kind of goes on and on. SQL databases, YouTube Analytics, and so much more. You can plug it into your HubSpot, into SEMrush for SEO. Just a lot of cool different things that are already plugged into Looker Studio. But for today, we could go to Google Sheets and connect to that one sheet we were just looking at, but I'm just going to upload it today as a CSV. And so we'll come to Files, and we know it's called Payroll 2425. And let's see if it loads that in there without any problems. Processing, feeling good. Terrific. So if we look over here, it's got the week starting, the employee ID, first, last name, department, location. Everything is here. All these titles across the top here in our column headers are all showing up over here in our Looker Studio. So that being said, we are ready to create our first dashboard. I'm going to connect real quick to make sure that data is connecting to our studio. And first thing we're going to do is just hit create report in Google Looker Studio, and we'll just get a blank page. Nothing too crazy, nothing wild, but we can start adding different elements to this. In fact, we can change our theme and layout. We can say, okay, what do we want the background of the report to be? Let's give it a little bit of some attitude. We don't like, we want our fonts to be blue. Cool. So now it's starting to be able to incorporate some of those things. So let's talk about first, maybe we want to put departments in there. We're going to add a control and a drop-down list. We just did that from here. We can do everything from drop-down list, fixed sizes, checkbox, date control ranges. So the big buttons you're going to worry about are adding pages, adding data, charts, and controls. A lot of these are similar, pretty easy to use tools. But if we were just going to add, we would just draw it out how big we want it. It says week start. Well, we don't want week start. So if we click on this box, we can see the control field over here, the setup. And we can say week start. Well, we don't want week start. We want, let's do gross pay. And so now that box becomes gross pay. Pretty straightforward. And we can drop it down and we can see we don't want to choose just between that. We want a full total. So if we're reviewing it, you can see here that it's giving us all these options, and that's not necessarily what we want in there. So we will add from this column. And now this is telling us our gross pay. So adding a control lets us choose from the element. I'm going to get rid of that. But bringing it in from the right side over here is what brings in our actual information. So we can say first name, and that's got everybody in there. And we can add filters to it as well, all through this setup bar over here. So if we wanted it ascending or descending, if we wanted to go rows per page and we wanted to make it 2,500 rows per page, we could certainly make that work out for us as well. But as you can see here, this is just basically adding elements over here from, see how we just added last name by dropping that on there. Maybe we want to put their department as well on here. And we just keep dropping those in there. And now we're getting a table right here in the middle of our sheet that we can come into and select filters and create it however we need to. This has everybody in there for all the dates. So if we changed week start right here, we can come through and edit that as well and make that a part of our dashboard. So this is just taking information off the spreadsheet and laying it out as we need to. And then again, if you wanted to do control lists, you could come in here and add control. We could start to do search. We could start to create search elements here from our data just by creating controls. Maybe it's a date range, right? Let's see. Date range control. And this is pretty straightforward, right? We could say the last 7 days, last 14 days, whatever we want, we apply that. And we see our numbers start to change and we see who's gotten paid change. So these are basic controls in Google's Looker Studio. And there's a lot that you can go through with this, but this is a non-AI way to jump into a report and start dragging elements onto a sheet and having it being able to be filtered and sorted. You could, like I said, and you could change it in the style by just coming through the backside here. I would encourage you to play with this program. It's got a little bit of a learning curve, but once you kind of get through that and start laying out elements and getting your data plugged in, you can start creating everything from, inserting bubble maps, heat maps, scorecards. I love a good scorecard. Being able to come in here and say, okay, that's gross pay, but we want first name on there as well. We want last name. And so by adding these elements in, we can start to change these scorecards and these boxes to whatever we want to. But this is Google Looker Studio. Like I said, take some time to play with this. This is a non-AI sort of setup for being able to use to create a dashboard. And like I said, you can certainly format it, make it look the way you want to, add different controls. And then when you're ready, you can certainly embed it, take it to your own website. You can put it, you can export it as a PDF. There's a lot of different ways you can certainly use this report as you need to. So take a chance and spend some time with Google Looker Studio. Like I said, non-AI way to do things, but your data is all there and you can start to lay it out in a field that you really want. Probably gives you the most control over your data when you're trying to lay out a dashboard. But let's move along because we have other tools that are going to use a little bit of AI to work for us. And so we'll stay in Google here for just a few more moments, and we're going to move off of Looker Studio to App Scripts. And App Scripts is essentially an actual code that's going to be running on our spreadsheet, and it turns the spreadsheet into an interactive dashboard. There's a few steps involved, but it's pretty simple. And the first thing is obviously we're going to let AI write the code for us based on what we want. And then they're going to give us a couple pieces of code. I'm going to show you where to paste those in a Google Sheet. And then you can save, run, and deploy it. And if it doesn't work, adjust the code, redeploy as necessary, which is a big part of the vibe coding world, is knowing that it's not going to be great the first time. You're going to have to go back, ask it to do this. Maybe it's not working or it's not showing you anything. You're going to need to give it a screen grab, send that back into the AI and say, hey, this is what I'm getting, or this is the error I'm getting. Can you please help? So let's jump into our Google Sheet here. first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to go to ChatGPT. And I'm going to give it this payroll data. And I'm going to say, I would like you to analyze the data and design for me a solid dashboard that I can filter departments, locations, enter employees by search, and make it interactive with a black background, white lettering, flat font. Sure. And so what we're going to try to do is get, you see how fast it put all that information in here with Python. It just spit out all of our information right into here. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to ask ChatGPT to write us code. And you can see here it's doing its chain of thought prompting. I need to design an interactive dashboard. I can't access the CSV file directly, but it's using Python to look at it. So it's going to propose a little data structure and it's going to write us code. And I'm going to let that do its thing for just a second here. And I'll show you where this code goes. So there's a little extra button right here. I didn't quite want it here just yet, but that's okay. We'll show you what happens here. So we're going to get two pieces of code. And if you come up here to a Google Sheet under extensions, this is where you're going to see apps script. And this can do a lot of things. This can turn your spreadsheet into, an interactive dashboard. I've used app scripts before where I've had an app script written to go on a spreadsheet and look through an entire folder of documents inside a Google folder and look for a chain of string of words and anything that matched that string of words listed on the spreadsheet. So I knew what sheets I needed to go in and make a change to, and we had to do a massive change to some job descriptions, right? So when you come into this real quick, it's still working over here, as you can see. So when you come in here to extensions and app scripts, you're going to land into this project right here, and we'll just put a little thing. We'll just call this payroll dashboard. Okay. And the two codes that you're going to get are code and usually sidebar or HTML, depending on how you want it to display. And one is the code. The code is what's in the back end, running all the data and doing all the hard lifting. And the sidebar or the HTML file that they're going to give you is what displays it for you so that you can interact with it and see it. As you can see here, looks like it's gone through the whole thing, and it's building me this huge file of code. And now it's building me index. And so these are two different pieces of code, and this is where the vibe coding part comes in. Don't be intimidated by all of this. So when you're in here, I'm going to go ahead and take all of this real quick. I'm going to copy this just in case I want to come back to it. Sometimes if you get yourself some good code and you really like it, it's important to put that somewhere if you're going to write over it, don't you think? So I'm going to layer these in here, just save those on the backside. Okay, so here's our code that ChatGPT wrote us, and I don't know what it's going to look like. Honestly, it's kind of a crapshoot when we first start off, but we're going to see if it did anything cool. So we're going to take copy code, and when we come over here, I'm just going to delete these real quick so that you see how I can do it from scratch. Okay, so our code's gone. So we copied our code from ChatGPT. This is the code.gs, and this is what we're going to call it. We come over here to files, and we're going to say, is it a script or is it an HTML? Well, the first thing is a code, and that's actually the script in app script. So we're just going to call this code. And it's right here. And all we're going to do is paste in, whoopsie, we're going to paste in that code that ChatGPT gave us. And there it all is. Okay, no problem. Easy peasy. And now we have one more file, though, that it gave us, right? Remember, it gave us two things. It gave us the back end, and now we're going to take the front end, which is this side, index. Realize what it's called there. It's important. And we're going to add another file, and this time we know it's HTML, which is basically the language that lets you see the internet in and of itself. And we're just going to copy and paste all that in right there. And so that's it. We've got 2 pieces of code in here, and we're just going to hit the run button. And we can see that it started and it ended as it should. So if I come back to our payroll dashboard, that little dashboard button that was here is gone because we actually have this deploying as its own website. So let me come back to here. Let me see, where was I? Sorry for the bouncing around here. So if I'm in my app script right here, we can see all of our code. We've run it. So I'm going to hit this big blue button called deploy. And we'll just call this payroll dashboard 12.3-25. Sure. And we want to deploy this. And this is basically going to have a brand new, it's going to be a web app. It's going to be a website that does this. And it's actually going to give you a special code right here. Now, it may work, it may not. That's always the mystery of vibe coding. Well, we got this. We got a black background as we asked for. We've got some drop downs here. So let's see. I know that I have an employee named Palmer. Let's see if I can get anything to actually display in here, right? So if we just say 01/15/2025, we have all these, you can see it's loading data here. And so we got this cool dashboard built for us, and it's got 1,500 rows to sort through. So it feels like it's got a lot to go through. But I don't feel like it's necessarily doing all the things I wanted to do. And so this is where I would go back to ChatGPT and I'd say, maybe I'd go to a print screen and I just say, here's what you got. I copy my screen and I just come over here and I say, paste in my screen grab and say, it looking good, but I don't see any of the data being interactive yet. And that's going to give our LLM something to think about when it comes to writing code. It's going to say, well, why isn't it doing that? And it's going to go back here and write the new code. And we would take the new code, come back over here, paste it into Code.js, run it, save it, deploy it, and go through that process again until we got our dashboard looking the way we want to. So see, you can see it's going, it's saying, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to figure it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the old code I just had, because I know that this one's pretty fun. And I'm going to come back over here and I'll say that this was the new code it gave me, right? That's great. Thank you so much. Appreciate all that. We'll save that. And then the other code that I had before I got started here today is right here. And we'll just say, okay, save that. And I hope the file name's right. I might have called this, might need to rename this. We'll see. But now we come back to our payroll sheet that we've got new code in. And we see payroll dashboard right here now. That's a script that's already run in the background, and it's given us a whole new navigation bar for this data. If I hit it and I hit open, we see exactly what happened. It says no HTML file name sidebar was found. So this is all part of the vibe coding, right? This is all part of that, hey, it's not working, what do I do? And this is the part that will drive you up the wall a little bit, but we know exactly what's going on. And so we know that this is supposed to be called sidebar on this version anyway. And so now if I come back here and I change the file to the right name, way to go, Mark. I hit payroll dashboard, boom. Look what happens over here. We get a whole dashboard right here in the middle of the sheet. And we could say, oh, I just want to see what's going on with Battle Creek and our finance department in Battle Creek. And we can see all the employees who work in finance, how much they're making. We can, dip in on each person's employee detail. It'll take a second to load that up, but we have all the paychecks right here for Amir King, who works in our Battle Creek finance. And so we've got the filters there. And so this is really the power of app scripts, right? And this isn't magical or something really, it's part of the, name of the webinar, AI Dashboard Magic. But This is just a simple little dashboard. Imagine the things that you could really do if you knew what you were asking for, right? Maybe we need to find, overtime hours. We need to be able to calculate overtime hours in a given week. You could certainly prompt your GPT to build something for you like that. And that's all just kind of coming into how you explain it using AI and using that interface with the LLM. Because if you don't like what it gives you, you need to go back and explain it like if it were like a very eager 7-year-old assistant and say, hey, no, here's what I wanted to do. I needed to display this and this. And if it's not working properly, then you need to show it why it's not working properly. And that's usually just a screen grab and saying, this is what I'm getting. Can you help? But that's all part of the vibe coding process. And so this is, like I said, the leveling up, the skills that are needed to sort of grow into this new role of vibe coding and building your own dashboards. It just takes a little practice and a little bit of patience. But eventually, there's nothing more fun than getting there after several hours of trying to build something. And then all of a sudden you actually build yourself something that works. And so very cool little dashboard right here using Google Apps Scripts. And so I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that because, like I said, we could be pasting codes all day long. But I will show you this, an example here of a dashboard that we had where it kind of goes through a lot of the things we talked about. This is a fictional injury monitoring dashboard for WSI. Let's say we had several people who may be injured on the job throughout the course of the year. We want to be able to track how that injury is progressing. What are our associates, doing as far as what they're doing? Is our team following up and going through the proper procedure? And so each person here, like Jane Doe, Gabby Goldsmith is the account manager. And did she have a phone screen? Yes. Okay, well, we can change that. Remember how drop downs are really good for us? We change our scores here, which are pretty basic, spreadsheet stuff, and you can make conditional formatting. So if it's partial, it's going to give it a 2.5. If it's a no, it gives it a 0. And we can change those scores. And we're going to get a final total score here based on the end here. We got a total score of each one. And based on how that score shapes up, if it's adequate, needs improvement, it all depends on how we've put together our conditional formatting here in a normal spreadsheet. So this just goes to show you, like, using drop downs and keeping one row for one thing and one column for each idea of the thing is really the best way to have your data set up. And so with this, we have a dashboard that we've run out of this where essentially we want to be able to see how the branches are doing as a whole. And essentially we just took the link of that deployed app script and created a dashboard. And it looks like this. And it's, like I said, just very basic, but it shows you that all that information that's contained here within this spreadsheet right here, which is, dozens and dozens of injuries, can all be calculated right here. We can thumb through each branch and see how each one's progressing. We can see how each one is being scored, whether or not Eddie Foxtrot is doing his job and keeping up with these injuries so that everybody's there. And then we're scoring each market based on, average score by cases, so that's how they're getting an average score. So a supervisor could come in and say, okay, it looks like everybody's doing good. Oh, Holland's really doing a great job this week with all 6 of their cases. They've got a 36, but we're trying to shoot for maybe 40 for exemplary. So we know we need to do more work. So it takes all the information of this sheet right here and just gives us a clean story to tell and be able to deduce our own opinions and information on it. So, but that's a kind of a full version of what can happen with app scripts. And that's just running, again, just kind of like what we did there with that other one. You have code, and this one's called index, but you just have 2 pieces of code that ChatGPT gave us. And we just put them in there, saved it, ran it, deployed it, fixed it a couple of times. So that is Google Apps Scripts. Like I said, a very powerful way to take your Google Sheets or any of your data and be able to tell a big story. Now, as we're about 35 minutes into this, I'm going to show you, one of the big dog tools. And this is something that a lot of people haven't been into yet, but this is where the vibe coding really moves into a whole different stage, right? Where you don't even have to worry about pasting code. We're just going to ask something to make something for us. And there's lots of programs that do that. Google's AI Studio, you can do it now in ChatGPT, programs like Cursor, have been able to do the vibe coding thing for quite some time. So with Google's AI Studio, This is simply an interface like a chat bot, and we're just going to tell it what we want. And so to go to that, we'll go to aistudio.google.com. I'm going to close up some of these previous dashboards. And when we come into this, we get this Google AI Studio, and there's all kinds of things you can do in here with a Google account. And from building things to trying Gemini's newest model to creating videos, text to speech. I mean, there's so much that can go on just in building things and vibe coding right here. So if we go into build, this could take a little while. So I think I have one that's already cooked. But if we just said, hey, as a business analyst, I want you to create a dashboard that features the overall total payroll, a calendar to filter. Apologize for the spelling, but I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to apologize anymore because it understands what I'm trying to say. Calendar filter dates, an employee card, locations, etc. Be able to filter the data as needed. This, and we can simply just give it the file. We'll just upload it, give it payroll 2024-25. And when we do this, it's going to take a little while because it's going to ingest all 15,000 rows of this data. But if we go into build, it's just going to work through it all right here on the left. And over here on the right, it's going to start showing us exactly what it is, which is pretty cool. So again, it's going to think for a while, and I know that this is actually going to take up quite a bit of time, and so I don't want to sit here and just watch the pot of water boil, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to Google AI Studio, and if I go into my apps, I've got one that's already been built here. And so we just, and we could certainly go back and tweak this, or we can talk to the LLM over here and make different decisions. But as you can see here, we've created a very nice dashboard that shows pay history for the weeks. For employee one, looks like it's used only 13. We only put in 13 entries just to keep the file size small and to keep it running very smooth. But we can see how the earnings for employee 6, for example, made $116,000 over the course of our dates here. If we switch it to 2025, we can see that this person, employee 6, has earned $50,000 so far year to date. So an interactive dashboard that's really cool, can sort things by total hours and start to sort our data. So this is, like I said, this is the king of vibe coding. If we didn't like how it looked, we wanted to change the title, we would just come over here and ask this mechanism, Google AI Studio, to do that for us. Say, hey, LLM, I need you to make it so that when we click on payroll, it can automatically sort it by department or whatnot. In fact, we can try to ask it for that. So when I click on payroll, I want to be able to sort by department or check all of them at once. And we would just tell the LLM that's what we want. And so I recommend that as much as I do like Google App Scripts and having things write code for me and start to work with pasting that in and getting it to look the way I want to sometimes, if you really just need something cool, this is really one of the best ways that you can do that. And so if I went to share here, I could certainly copy this, and maybe this is a link I would send out to my team to understand the data just a little bit better. So I say, hey, here's this week's employment report or payroll report. Click the link and enjoy the dashboard. And we get this, full screen interactive dashboard that we can certainly use as we're working through it. So that's pretty cool. I think I probably should have I'm going to open that incognito window just to see if it works. I have signed into Google. Okay. So yeah, you still have to be able to see it through Google on a Google account. So, but if we go to, share, we can certainly default to full screen, copy that, and then we would just paste that in, and boom, our dashboard is right there. And if we wanted to change that dashboard, the cool news is over here in Google AI Studio, it's still working on a lot of that right now. So it's going to take some time as it's built. You can see right here, it's still building out files. All of these are different like web application files. And so Google AI Studio, very cool way to, I would say maybe the best way right now to build your dashboards. And you could certainly upload a Microsoft Excel sheet or whatever it is that you have that you want to display as far as spreadsheets and data go. And then teach the LLM what it is you want. And you have all of this control here. You can even give it specific system instructions. You can give it a template and other different variations. But we want to make sure that, you understand the no-code way with Looker Studio, having AI write you code with something like a Google Apps script, and then finally using something that's just going to do it all for you, which is this Google AI Studio right here, where you get this really cool dashboard where, like I said, you can filter things out by 2025. You can see how our payroll shrinks based on that. If we wanted to go with employee 0016, let's see, 13 is as high as we go. So we can go to employee 12. We can see what their earnings are for the calendar period. However you want to configure this. Like I said, I think that's the big thing, is knowing that you can go by location. You can go by overtime. Look at this. We can see overtime by department. Let's see who's burning the most overtime. It looks like maintenance is. That means we got some other problems to deal with. Location, Grand Rapids. So we can see where the highest payroll is taking place, Grand Rapids. Again, department. We can see that engineering is the biggest department that's taking up as far as payroll goes. And so this is just, like I said, all of your imagination really is the key for Google AI Studio. What can you imagine? How can you present the data? And that's going to give you, at least a little bit of background to be able to prompt the system properly so that you can get what it is you're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and close this one out, close that out. I think we're working on that. Yeah, like I said, it takes a long time to cook. So you could be spending, 15, 20 minutes just waiting for it to come up with that first version and then working through massaging it. So I wanted to make sure I had one kind of done and ready for you. So this is our payroll sheet, right? This is this information right here. We have this little dashboard over here, which is cool. But if we want to do something a little more razzmatazz, we've got something that's beautiful like this that we can do a lot of different things. And so it looks like we even got tools here where we can highlight and even more. So that's kind of fun. So again, this is a really great way to do that. There's a lot of different programs that do this now. Google AI Studio is certainly one of my favorites. I think Google's done a great job of coming along over the course of the last months and really just making themselves as important as ChatGPT when it comes to using AI. So like I said, no code, low code, and full AI integration with these three different ways to make a dashboard. So finally, I think as we work our way through today's presentation, we're going to talk about Microsoft Excel with Copilot. Now, maybe you can work your way into some pretty good graphs and charts. Maybe you got your master of the lookup. Cool. Maybe your pivot tables are amazing. If that's the case and you're already telling stories with Microsoft Excel, good for you. I know a lot of people struggle with the robust nature of it, and some people are all in or half in or just barely hanging on with Microsoft Excel. It's not a program I work in marketing a whole lot, but I do want to show you what I think is the best way now in 2025, 2026 to use Excel, and that requires your Google Microsoft account to have a Copilot subscription. So if you work in that business environment, I know it's maybe $10 a month for a personal account, and it's probably, I think, maybe $30 per person on a business account. But I certainly would recommend leveling up if you work in Excel all the time and you're always trying to present, data in an information storytelling fashion, to get a Copilot subscription. To use the full version of it, you got to be having that Microsoft 365 plan, like a business standard plan, and then, like I said, $30 a month, typically billed annually. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of Microsoft with this payroll data, and there's a couple different ways we can do that. First, I'll just open the sheet as an Excel file. And this is just on my local machine, which does not quite perform the way you want to, because if you're using AI, it's got to go touch a server somewhere, and it doesn't want to necessarily get all the information from your spreadsheet off a local machine and then try to go to the server and ask it questions and then come back and try to do things on your local machine. So having your sheet somewhere in the OneDrive cloud is always pretty helpful. But you can always push your Copilot right here, and you can ask questions, kind of like we did with Google Sheets. You can ask questions of your data. So what department had the highest amount of overtime for August of 2025? And I'm interested to see if it'll say, I need the sheet, or if it knows it has the sheet, because sometimes it does both for me here. But it looks like it's just going to look within the sheet. Let's see. So Copilot can be a little finicky. So we're just going to start up here. Let's see, cumulative overtime hours. So here we're going to ask it, can you make me a line graph with cumulative overtime hours from January 8th, 24 through September 30th of 25? Use quarters as years, and it starts to graph this process out for you. And boom, you can insert, and we wouldn't want to put this on our main sheet, but maybe we have this graph right here. We can insert it, or we can just copy it actually, and we can just paste it right here. And since we have these little controls right here, we're just looking at our overtime hours. And obviously, since we just started in 2024, quarter one, they're going to be at 0. But as we've gone along through the months, they continue to rise and to rise and to rise. So we can certainly use the data to spot a problem with that. You can see it created a chart right here, breakdown by month. And now I wanted to find out, well, what's the actual story here? Can we break down overtime by department and see which departments are costing us the most overtime? And again, we're just asking using natural language and Microsoft Copilot over here to help decipher our data. Now you could do it here within the sheet itself, which I find pretty useful, but I actually find it more useful when you just go to 365. So now we can see here, we're starting to tell a story already. Customer service, engineering, all these different departments here, and how they're burning through our total overtime hours. And this is date formatted for just 2025 on this one. And then maybe I said, hey, you know what? I don't know which location's actually doing it all. So let's make it by location and put a bar chart in for every location. So again, Microsoft 365 with Copilot, very robust, very powerful. Just being able to use the right language. And now we can see a better picture of, okay, it looks like our HR team in Battle Creek is really going through the overtime hours in 2025. And in Lansing, it looks like our finance team is really going through the hours. But overall, Grand Rapids is under control, Detroit, Kalamazoo. So you can see how you can ask us these questions to it, and it's going to basically just try to do its best to answer for you. You can certainly go to the document itself and work within it, but I also like to go to Microsoft 365.cloud.microsoft and go straight into Copilot here and use it just like I would ChatGPT or any other LLM like Google Gemini. And so I could say, I could upload the sheet, payroll 2024-25, say, make me a payroll chart, bar graph for pay by department for April 2025, and just see what it does, right? So sometimes here in the document, I feel like it's in this kind of file in the sidebar here, it gets a little wonky, kind of saying, hey, I don't know where the data is and what am I supposed to do? But the cool thing is that if you're just inside 365, it can do it all right through here. And then it actually still pops in over here on the right. So as you refresh Copilot, it'll have that chart that you can just insert, but you can also download it straight off of this interface as well. So I know we're coming up here towards the back end of our webinar. And so I just wanted to make sure I showed you the power of Microsoft 365. And it's working on it. But I would certainly recommend, there we go, boom. So we can see by department our total pay. And we can see that HR is very expensive. I know for those HR professionals on this call, you know how that is. You're very expensive. Your time is very important. But we can see here broken down just like we wanted it to. Total pay for April. We can make adjustments. We can embed this. We can download it as a PNG. We can copy the code and put it somewhere else. Whatever we really want to do. It even gives us suggestions on some of the things that we want to do here. But you can view different prompts. But 365 with Copilot subscription, very, very powerful. Very powerful tool indeed. So like I said, if I close this up and I add this back in here, we should see some of that new information come back in from our previous chat session right here. So August 2025, department overtime hours. Yeah, that was our last conversation. So you can see all of the chats here. I'll reload that. Down here, we start to see all those graphs and charts that we were putting in. Yeah. And then the new one should probably source in there in a bit. But you can, like I said, you can also just download it straight from Copilot here. Download your PNG, and then you can insert it into your sheet as you need to. So very powerful, very robust. Like I said, Gemini is doing a lot of the same things in Google Sheets. So if you don't work in Microsoft Excel very much and you work in Google, use the Gemini tool. If you're working in Microsoft Excel all the time and you want to see cool dashboards and charts created just by using your voice and natural language, then I would certainly suggest getting that Copilot subscription. Just seeing over here, it finally did finish cooking everything. I just want to see what our dashboard that we requested back over here in Google's AI Studio did, and you can see here we have we put 12 employees through it. We can decipher our costs here. Let's just say we didn't go to October actually. Let's go back to like June 1st through June 30th or July 31st, 2 months of the summer. How much do we pay? How many overtime hours are we clocking in? That seems like quite a bit. Maybe we want to just see what the customer service numbers were. So we have this really cool dashboard over here that we just made today using our payroll sheet with drop downs and filters, showing trends and stories, and being able to essentially, put it all together. I'm really happy with this. You can tell I'm like looking at this going, wow, this isn't bad at all. I really like this. So again, a cool way to build it. I certainly suggest that there's another way right there. Obviously, it may not do the same thing every time unless you give it more instructions. But obviously in our prompt, we didn't really give it a ton of direction. We just said, hey, here's what we want. But you could certainly go back and use your LLM or ChatGPT to say, what would you do to display this data properly? What is the best way? What are the stories that we want to tell? Because maybe you don't know. So one of the best ways you can do it is certainly just ask the LLM, ask Gemini, ask Claude, ask ChatGPT. How would you display this data so that my bosses understand, can find a way to track overtime hours and make informed decisions? And let the LLM start to figure that out for you, and then say, cool, why don't you write me that code, or help me, write me a really good prompt that I can use in Google AI Studio to help generate this. So again, we've made some dashboards today that are pretty cool. Microsoft Excel, like I said, in 365 with Copilot is awesome. Google Gemini is getting really good every single day. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. And if you really just want to know AI way and you want to just be able to control elements and put them where you want to and load the data in as you need to and create your own, you can certainly use Looker Studio for that as well, which connects to a ton of data sources. So that being said, that kind of controls most of that for today's webinar. If you guys have any questions, I would certainly entertain them right now. You can drop them into the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask. Spreadsheets aren't necessarily my purview and my forte, but I do love to tell a good story. And sometimes, not everybody gets the same story looking at, a sheet of data. So it's important to be able to create a dashboard so that you can always tell the story you want to be able to tell with that. But there are lots of different ways to do it. Looker Studio, AI's Google AI Studio, 365 Copilot, and writing app scripts and having it write the code for you and placing it in a Google Sheet with that as well. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear them now. If no questions, that means that I've done my job so dramatically and so perfectly that you all are probably better at this than anyone you've ever known at this point. So I appreciate that. But yeah, we'll just hang out here. I said you can put them in the chat or whatnot. But if not, we have recorded today's session. And so I would certainly recommend you go back through that and kind of watch how we pasted things in for Google Apps scripts. Just remember, it's going to give you 2 pieces of code, the back end and the front end. And if you don't know what to do with them, ask the LLM, okay, where do I put this? What? Slow down. I have tremendous ADHD. One step at a time. Where's this button? And just ask that LLM and keep working back and forth. And that is really the beauty of vibe coding, and really the dance of it all is you and an LLM going back and forth to figure out how to do things that you couldn't do before any of this stuff came into our purview a couple of years ago. So thank you again for being a part of our webinar today. Make sure you're telling stories with your data, and we'll also send out a survey that's going to follow the conclusion of this webinar. So we would really love for you to be able to put that feedback on there as well. Tell us, webinars that may interest you that we can do into 2026 as well. So again, thanks for attending. If this is your first one, appreciate you being here. If you've been back for a few of these, always glad to have you. Hope you guys have a great holiday season. And like I said, look forward to the replay as well, and start building your own dashboards and making your data tell a story.